Welcome, folks. This is part 8 of the story Eureka, a guide to the mysticism. I hope you have fun. In this part, we will have an interesting turn of the story, a very important point, and I don't want to spoil everything, so I hope you have fun listening to my story as much as I had fun creating the story. The story is written by me and translated into English by an AI. So yes, it's the voice of an AA, but it's my story. And then let's start right with the story. Let's go.
If I want to become a Beander, I have to do it smartly. I need bone powder, but nobody said it has to be from humans. I can use animals. Then I'd have the ritual, but it still needs more than just an object with the right spirituality. Wait, ghosts don't occupy physical space. So why not have Aries Blackstone find an object she can use as an anchor? Yes, I'll do that. But am I ready to kill? Is that what I have to do to become a Veil Beander? Again, the ritual's conditions are unclear. It probably doesn't matter whether I kill someone who tried to kill me or some random person. If I wanted, I could put a human soul into an animal and then kill it. It's not about who dies, it's about being connected to death somehow. So it should be doable. As Theodore wrote, I can't accidentally perform the ritual. If it's possible, I'll sense it, and if not, I won't. I can't trigger the ritual without meeting its conditions. Myra thought as she collapsed onto the bed and shrugged off her jacket and hat. If objects with concentrated spirituality really exist widely, then it's not that strange to see someone like her unaffected by cold. The ring on her finger glittered in the lantern light and seemed to have a supernatural warmth, protecting her from low temperatures, which made it possible to wear lighter clothes. What do you think? Aries asked in her bodiless form. Nothing. We'll run an experiment, and I'll need to fill you with some energy. You'll have to hunt spirits and I'll try to strengthen you with what I can. For now, tests, Myra said as she explained her plan. Okay, I'll do it, Aries replied, her voice trembling with excitement. The concept was simple, but binding Aries to the right object proved difficult. After several attempts, it became clear that the object needed to be something important to her when she had been alive. They spent the whole evening with no success, but eventually found the right object. The most important thing you had was a silver ring you kept at home. Can you really find that ring and bring it back to me? Myra asked uncertainly. Yes, I can possess animals. My family is broke but still rich enough to get by. We lost our title, but I can go home and find the ring. Shall I do it now? Aries asked. No, we'll do it tomorrow morning. I'm going to sleep now, Myra said. At that idea, the small amount of energy Necron had restored ebbed through the room and seeped into the walls. It was a test and it showed the idea could work, though the spirit defensive effect faded quickly. Necron left no visible trace on Aries as Myra slept. The power made Aries tired as night fell. Strange things happened that no one could see. Energies mixing that shouldn't mix. Myra had no appetite, her eyes closed and darkness came. A strange, ritualistic presence filled the dark. This dream had come before, but tonight it was clearer. Voices filled the darkness. Oh, Lady of Flowers and Dreams. Mistress of Dreams, Grant, said one voice. Oh Goddess of Fashion, please show me the way through the dark, heal the moon, other voices cried. Wait, what is this? Myra wondered as lights began to pierce the dark. No matter how Myra reached for the lights, nothing changed, only silence and lights, and again the voices. Then suddenly a clear, tiny voice streaked by like a shooting star. What are these voices? Prayers to a god? Maybe I'm imagining it, Myra thought as the world warped in a light brighter than all the others flared in the black void. Then more and more voices arrived as colorful lines that merged into a river. This is familiar. I've experienced this before, but when? Myra thought as each thought grew heavier, yet the gravity on her thinking didn't stop her. It's a dream or something else. I have experienced it before but forget it when I wake, Myra thought as more light points scudded past and raced toward a distant star. When some of the points drew too close, it felt as if gravity pulled them toward her, voices, wishes and feelings, belief itself. Then everything ended with a tug, and the morning sun's light filled a familiar room. What was that just now? I dreamed something I've dreamed before. Myra asked herself as she sat up in her room, and the first thing she noticed was that Necron had fully recovered again. But a second feeling struck her, something she ought to remember but couldn't. Then, briefly, she felt as if something had been broken, as if a memory had been veiled. It felt almost like veiled spirituality. Strange, but not entirely unfamiliar. What was that? A black void and shooting stars streaking through it? No, those were prayers, belief directed at something or someone. So why did some of those prayers focus on me? Was that more than a dream? Myra wondered, trying to sense anything else, but there was nothing, only silence. If that was belief, I don't feel any different. Whatever that was, it barely affected me, as far as I can tell. So, whatever. Myra said, confused, staring at her hand as if it owed her an answer. Is something wrong, Miss Myra? Ares asked. Nothing, but after breakfast we can try to find that ring at your home. Or you can do it, I'll wait outside. Myra said, her thoughts already turning in circles. It's time to test. I really need to look at spirits of smaller creatures. I already saw that when I go all out I can reach far. But this should also work in the city. First I need to be sure I can target only the specific spirits I want. How about I start with the smallest things I know, insects? Myra thought as she reached out and, unfortunately for a Quetzalcoatlus northropodus, made it her first test subject. An invisible force crackled through the air like static, filling the space with a soundless pressure, and the Quetzalcoatlus's soul was ripped away. That confirmed her first suspicion. It isn't impossible to tear a living creature's soul free. It's simply that the larger and smarter the creature, the harder it is to steal its soul, and ripping out the spirit of a small flying reptile is much easier than she'd expected. Great. I can kill small animals if I concentrate, but what good is that? If I'm attacked nobody's going to come at me with elephants or dinosaurs. That's not useful for fighting. Myra thought, and only a second later, while getting dressed, she reflected on how odd this world's animals looked compared to Mark Tesla's world. The part of her that had always lived here wasn't surprised at how small these flying reptiles were. The part of her from another world couldn't stop comparing every oddity to Mark Tesla's world. Great, an instant death power that lets me kill lizards one after another, Myra thought as a few more slipped in through the open window. It took nothing more than a thought, a few heartbeats and concentration to kill them one after another. It almost felt helpful, useful even, but while Myra ordered something for breakfast she realized there was a practice she needed more than killing reptiles, exterminating pests. From small, centimeter-long pigs that eat anything that falls to the ground to ants the same size, no pest could evade Myra's will. Okay, I've got 45 souls now, but they're too small, and I don't need them to devour right now. Even if this is a very slow instant death power, I can't complain I don't miss. I just can't influence anything larger, so what should I do with them? Myra wondered, and then had the idea to see if those spirits could be used for something else. It sounded silly, but there was still time before the food arrived, so regardless of how odd it seemed she pressed and blended the spirits together. There was no finesse, the spirits began to scream and warp. The distortion faded and a strange form took the place of the 45 previous spirits. It wasn't strong, but it was stable enough not to fall apart. Huh, that damn thing actually did something. I thought nothing would happen. Myra thought, barely able to suppress a smile. What are you doing? Ares asked, which gave Myra an idea. I should be able to do that too. Myra thought and, for the first time, tried not to speak with her mouth. The result was unexpected. Ares flinched as if thunder had sounded right beside her ear, and her form kinked briefly. Distortion, please forgive me for questioning you, Ares said, now completely terrified. What was that? I wanted to speak with my soul. What did you hear? Myra asked, unsure and full of curiosity. It felt like something thundered inside me, like the voice of a god or a natural catastrophe, Ares said. A god? Drama. I only tried to talk to my soul, but I guess there must be a reason my body has an anti-possession effect. How strong is my soul that it can simply influence ordinary spirits like that? Myra wondered, trying to ignore the strange looks from other people nearby. After a few attempts it worked. Speaking that way felt odd, like using a muscle that hadn't been there before, and forming the words quietly was difficult. It wasn't just hard to shape the words, it was hard to keep them soft, to utter them in that non-corporeal way. Man, I think I've got the hang of it now. Am I still too loud? How far can you hear me? Myra asked, unsure how far sound carries in this non-physical realm. I can test it briefly, Aries said, sounding a little rattled and exhausted. But when they found out how far the words traveled, Myra shuddered. Seriously, I can be heard in a radius of 300 meters. Shit, I need to find a better method. Myra thought as Aries returned to her side.
No matter how long Myra thinks about it, it doesn't help. Speaking to spirits loudly alerts every spirit within a 300-meter radius. So this form of communication proves useless for now. Your food, young mistress, says a young woman who works at the restaurant. She has gray hair and pale silvery blue eyes. Something slightly unusual, but given the many hair and eye colors in this world it isn't extraordinary. Still, in Avaran there shouldn't be many people without black hair, so it feels a bit odd, something Myra notices. Her soul appears as ordinary as everyone else's within sight. Excuse me, you're not from here? Myra asks as her gaze moves over the woman's simple clothes. By Myra's estimate she looks about 18 to 20. She doesn't strike Myra as a local. And then there's her impressive bust, which stirs a little envy in Myra. Yes, I'm not from here. Why? Nelith asks as the noblewoman studies her with those two differently colored eyes that seem to peer through skin and muscle at things that shouldn't be visible. Why am I getting goosebumps from this young woman? Nelith wonders, feeling as if she's seen her somewhere before. Nothing, I just thought you have beautiful hair and eyes, that's silvery blue. And you look very fit for a waitress. Myra says, her sharp gaze missing nothing. Ah, yes, I come from Wyloria, Nelith replies as the feeling that something is off grows stronger. She's a student at the Royal Academy. I saw her in a photo when I looked at the papers. Aries says beside Myra, hovering up and down. Damn it, I can't talk to Aries now because everyone would hear me, Myra thinks. Ah, that's interesting, I've never been to Wyloria. It's supposed to be known for its beautiful beaches. What are you doing here in Falona? Myra asks, trying to loosen the mood. The smell of strawberry soup is tempting. Myra's stomach starts to growl. I study, and I think I know you from somewhere. But I don't know where. Nelith says, trying to recall. No matter how hard Nelith concentrates, it seems impossible to trace the origin of this strange feeling. My name is Myra, but if that doesn't help, maybe another name will. I think Delore used to be my pen name. Myra says, not really believing it possible that someone would randomly have found a reader of her books. Ah, Nelith's eyes widen with recognition and her lips spread into a smile. You wrote those exciting novels. Nelith says, barely able to contain her excitement at stumbling across the author of her favorite book series. As Nelith struggles to find the right words, she can't help getting louder with enthusiasm, drawing the attention of the nearby patrons. A few seconds later, when Myra's confused expression registers, Nelith's sense that something is wrong grows. So I was an author. Myra murmurs as the feeling rises that she's overlooked or forgotten something important. Then, suddenly and without warning, it hits Myra like a blow. Memories of months in the library rush back. The legend of the Wendigo is perhaps the tale most widely spread, especially in Wyloria. What's wrong? Can I help you? Nelith asks, leaning forward with concern. It's nothing, just a slight headache, Myra replies, still surprised to be recovering a portion of her lost memories like this. As the pounding headache subsides after an indeterminate time and the flood of memory settles into place, the question arises, how was she recognized at all? There weren't any pictures of her face in the papers. What about you? Nelith asks hesitantly. I had an accident, my memories are coming back. It's nothing you should worry about, but I'm more curious how you recognized me. I never made a big point of putting my face out into the world, so there shouldn't be photos. And please, be a little quieter, people are staring. Myra says. Oh, I'm sorry about your accident. I mean that, but I recognized your voice. You've been on a few podcasts reading your stories. Nelith says proudly, as if she's achieved something great by listening to every episode. A podcast in this world? That doesn't fit. I thought there were no radios here, Myra thinks, correcting herself. There are radios here, just not widespread. Radio waves aren't reliable enough for long-distance communication like between countries, let alone for mass broadcasting. But for communication inside a city or a local area, it is possible. One part of Myra feels as though this has always been normal, another part is confused and unsettled. Whether that's because her memories are still incomplete or because the memories from another world that came with the Necron power are mingling together, she can't say. The confusion and disorientation won't lessen. So it was my voice that sounded familiar to you, Myra says. Yes, that was my voice. I own every one of your books, Nelith says as she takes a seat at Myra's table. Ah, I'm glad to hear that, Myra replies, unsure what to say in the situation. Could you keep it to yourself who I am? That would save me a bit of stress, Myra adds, thinking about how many people would want her autograph. Just as Nelith is thrilled to have found her favorite author, a familiar voice calls her back to work, reminding her that her shift isn't over and she can't take a break. She stands, and for a second it seems polite to ask something, but when the young noblewoman looks up, Myra seems to put the words into her mouth. We'll see each other again soon at Averon's Royal Academy. It should be easier to meet there, Myra says, her eyes flashing with something that leaves no doubt she is Delore, the famed author. The girl's plain clothes and the way she speaks fit Nelith's idea of the author perfectly. It's something she never expected, to run into Delore by chance. But there's more about the young woman that feels odd. Why do I feel like she can see things you shouldn't be able to see? I feel strangely exposed under her gaze. And how did she know I go to the academy? Nelith wonders, heart pounding as if it might leap from her throat. Myra pays the bill and steps back into Averon's freshly decorated streets. The bustle is still there. It's a bit calmer than she expected, but still crowded. From children to adults, everyone carries a lantern of some size. What catches Myra's eye in particular is that some of the lanterns seem a cross between a lantern and a helium balloon. That shouldn't be possible. Why are those lanterns floating? They shouldn't be light enough to displace the air. As Myra stands and admires the strange, familiar yet foreign sights, one conclusion becomes unavoidable. Myra von Silverstar is more than just a human. No matter how much she might deny it, there is no other explanation. She must be an apostle of a high-ranking god. There's no other way. How could someone who hasn't even walked a Beander path have authority over death? Ares thinks, daring not to ask further questions. I don't think I could survive the cognitive poison that would result from hearing that answer. And I'm a ghost now. Whatever she did to keep me from being pulled into the beyond can't end well for me, Ares thinks as she hovers next to the human-shaped thing. This is your home, then. Honestly, I didn't expect you to still live in such a fine villa after your family went bankrupt, Myra says 15 minutes later as they arrive at the Blackstone family mansion, her expression neutral while she appraises the 3-story house. Yeah, what can I say? The family home and a few plots outside the city are all that's left, Ares answers nervously, unsure how to enter when there's no animal to possess. Here, take this horse. It's just died and should be small enough to avoid drawing attention, Myra says, as if it's no big deal, pulling the animal from one of her many pockets. The horse has brown fur, 6 legs, and is roughly the size of Myra's hand. For a second there is silence as Ares tries to make sense of the strange situation. When no explanation comes and Myra doesn't bother to clarify, Ares shrugs her non-existent shoulders and reaches her translucent silvery white hand toward the tiny creature. At first nothing happens, but when the creature twitches, a silvery, unseen light spreads over the room for a few breathtaking seconds as the odd sensation of being absorbed hits Ares. Then, in the next moment, possession of the horse is complete. Man, I'll never get used to this, Ares thinks as her new body twitches and, for a few seconds, moves the 6 legs and sees through the horse's eyes. All right then, off you go. And please don't keep me waiting, Myra says, watching the way Veil spirituality mingles with the horse's remaining Dominion spirituality and interacts almost like a living organism. Does that mean that if I steal the soul from a small pest, I don't exactly kill it but remove its control unit, and the creatures then simply starve or fall somewhere and die? Myra wonders as she lowers the possessed horse and watches it gallop off. Everything goes according to plan, and the little 6-legged horse climbs the outer wall of the building with ease. It feels as strangely familiar and unnatural as the floating lanterns. That sense of knowing something in this world is both utterly natural and oddly wrong refuses to fade. This is weird. I can't even say why I get this strange feeling that something is both wrong and right at the same time. I couldn't tell whether it's because I have memories from another world and time, or because I'm just strange, Myra thinks as she waits in silence off the busy street. The background noise is almost too quiet, then voices that don't quite fit seep in, people speaking in different languages and tones. It takes a few seconds, and then it seems to vanish again, as if it were never there. What was that? I thought I heard voices. Am I going crazy, or crazier than I already am? But why would I keep imagining voices that don't tell me what to do? Myra wonders, briefly considering whether this might be schizophrenia. No, it's not that. I don't feel exhausted or display any signs of going mad. And my brother said I wasn't controlled or poisoned by cognitive poison. So it's not that. Then what is it? She asks herself, shifting her hat to find a more comfortable position while she thinks. I found the ring, and it feels exactly like you described. It feels like I can slip into it. It just feels right, Aries Blackstone says, surprisingly composed, as she approaches and floats a ring in her ghostly hand. I gave you a body, where is it? Myra asks, more curious than angry. Yeah, it seems the body didn't hold up long, it collapsed halfway through. I couldn't move it anymore. But as you can see, that's not even necessary, because I can touch this ring as a spirit. It's really strange, Aries says, impressed by her newly discovered power to touch objects again. So it really works. I thought it wouldn't, Myra says as she watches again in her mind how Veil spirituality mixes with Dominion spirituality. You foresaw that? Aries asks. Yes, I did, but I didn't expect it to happen so quickly. I didn't know it would be like this. How is it back home? And why don't you want to go look for your body? I mean, your body must suit your soul, Myra asks casually. Well, I don't think I can return to it anymore, even if they helped me. And I think the body's gone, burned or otherwise beyond use, Aries replies unwilling to explain. You think they ate your body or burned it? Myra says, surprised at this newly found ability to read Aries' thoughts. Hey, please stop reading my thoughts, Aries says, backing away a few floating inches, frightened. That wasn't intentional, whether you believe me or not. But honestly, stop seeing me like a god. I'm not a god and I don't feel godlike, Myra says, immediately sensing that her attempt to convince Aries has only worked partially. Look, it wasn't my intent to read your thoughts. I honestly don't know how I did that. So please, relax, and stop treating me like a god. I get that my powers probably seem weird, Myra adds, understating it enormously. Their conversation is cut short by footsteps. That might be normal, except they're in a dark side street away from the main road. Well, what do we have here? A pretty young thing all alone in this neighborhood. That's dangerous for someone like you. If you got lost, I can take you back to your parents, says a man with deep-set eyes, a hooked nose and sharp features. A naive boy, unaware of the mysticism world and its sects, might have been fooled. Myra is not naive. As her eyes glow with an invisible light, the hidden is revealed. The two bodyguards flanking the man lack souls, making it clear these are corpse puppets, not people. Shit, I'm nowhere near as good as I want to be at shooting. I can't run. They're not spirits. I can't use Necron to steal a soul from something that has no soul. These puppets are dead and I probably can't just run. My body is still too limp. I can't fight effectively enough for it to matter. My superpower Necron doesn't work here. And Aries could at best take over one of the two figures, if even that, Myra thinks as her mind races and adrenaline floods her veins. No, I'm not lost. Thanks for the offer, but I'll be fine, Myra says, disguising her voice as best she can so she won't be identified as a young girl. It proves useless. The nobleman's eyes flash and his friendly smile twists into something else. This is Rack. He's a small gang leader in the criminal underworld. He fences goods and sells almost anything. He's shown interest in buying slaves. He's a criminal through and he owns a ring that likely contains Dominion spirituality, a marionette ring. As you'll see, he controls his two bodyguards with it. They're probably corpse puppets, Aries Blackstone says, trying to read the expression on her benefactor's face. Damn it, I wish I could talk to Aries now, but my abilities don't allow that. If I do, every spirit within a 300-meter radius will hear me. It's awful that I can't be quieter. But I have to get out of here somehow. And from the way he's grinning creepily, he doesn't look like he intends to let me go, Myra thinks as her legs choose that moment to turn to jelly. That's really hurtful. I'm not some terrifying man. I only want to help you, Rack says, stepping closer with that put-on smile meant to inspire trust but producing the opposite effect. Yeah, sorry, my parents taught me not to trust strangers, Myra says, subtly sliding her hand into her jacket pocket. As his guard drops for a moment, everything happens fast. She jumps aside and draws the revolver. It's a split second, but enough. The shot cracks like a whip down the alley and finds its target. Blood sprays as the two hulking guards move to seize her. One of them freezes as if held by an invisible force, the other takes the next 3 shots. One bullet lodges in the shoulder, another in the leg, and the last misses the man's head by a hair. That won't be enough, little beauty. My corpse puppets aren't so easily destroyed, Rack says, launching into a villainous line, puzzled why one guard no longer moves but arrogant enough to loom over his opponent as his wounded, still functioning guard shields him. Damn, if I run now, that puppet will pursue me. And it definitely has more muscle than I do. Unlike me, a puppet can't feel pain. I can. This sucks. Why do I have such an unfair advantage only against Veil spirituality? What do I do now? I can't just take control of a corpse puppet. Wait, maybe I can if I plant a spirit into it and then control that spirit. That would be an indirect takeover. I can't interact with Dominion spirituality, but I can with Veil spirituality. I'm not a Beander, but Necron already interacts with Veil spirituality, Myra thinks. Her heart pounding so fast it feels like it will burst from her chest. Chapter 3. Cognitive poison as a weapon. But this is definitely going to be difficult, what I'm about to try. I've never done this before, and I hope it works. If it doesn't, I only have one way out left. Myra thought, focusing all her attention on the small, grotesque creature, the first spirit she had made with the help of Necron. It was a tiny, grotesque thing roughly rat-shaped, but with too many eyes and a translucent, silvery glow and a kind of pulsing core at its center. It was a very rudimentary creature, one that followed instinct, but it was clever enough to take a simple order and not forget it immediately. Well then, has the young lady run out of means and ways to flee? Or are we so frightened that we can't find words? Rack leered, licking his dry lips. The gunshot wound in his shoulder was already almost forgotten. Even if the situation still seemed under control for the moment, Rack couldn't help noticing how unnervingly calm the girl opposite him was. She only had 2 bullets left and no way to neutralize both corpse puppets, let alone him. It became painfully clear that something was wrong when the second corpse puppet also stiffened and control over it grew more difficult. What the? He wondered. Years of experience in Averan's criminal underworld told him this was turning dangerous. Whatever. Throw a few small moves. That'll stop when I get my hands on you. Rack said, anger and irritation in his voice as the girl remained motionless. A second later, when Myra shifted to free a firing lane, the corpse puppet followed her movement, but clumsier and noticeably slower than before. As if someone had thrown sand into the gears of a perfectly oiled clock. I can't hold it much longer. He's going to get control of the body back any second now, came a strained male voice, Ares, still fighting invisibly for control of the first guard's body. Shit, Myra swore as she found no clear shot and both her remaining rounds sat unused in the revolver. Just as a small opening appeared, the corpse puppet lunged forward, bridging the few meters between them in an almost inhuman leap. Myra's eyes widened in terror as a fist came crashing toward her, a strike her fragile frame couldn't dodge quickly. A heartbeat later, pain exploded in her abdomen as she slammed backward against the stone wall of the alley. The next blow knocked the last air from her lungs, and the metallic clatter of a fallen weapon sounded. Shit, that really hurts, and now I can't use my second gun. That's it for me, Myra thought as the crack of bone echoed and hot, searing pain spread through her. Another hit, then a hush, as warm liquid trickled down her brow. The world didn't just spin, everything felt distant. Bang, a deafening report cracked through the silence and, almost at the same moment, both blurred corpse puppets collapsed when the animating force stopped. You bitch, you still had a trump card, Rack spat as he hauled himself up, ordering a staggered puppet to pick up the smoking gun on the ground. How that revolver had fired by itself was one of the mysteries he would beat out of the pretty young girl later, once she came to and they were somewhere safer. What was that? Rack murmured, a strange sensation washing over him like an invisible tide. Stop, spare me, please. I'll tell you everything, where I'm from, why I have these powers, just don't kill me. I'm from planet Earth and my name is Mark Tesla. I come from the superhero family Tesla and I have a doctorate in physics and mathematics. My doctoral thesis was on black holes. Black holes have an event horizon, the boundary of space and time from which nothing that falls in can escape. Black holes can't stand still because the conservation of angular momentum says that anything spinning tries to keep spinning. So when a star collapses into a black hole, the black hole spins far faster than the star did. It's like making a spinning top smaller. Rotating black holes have another effect. They're like a whirlpool in space-time. If you travel with the rotation, you can get a final boost and come back out again, like a slingshot maneuver. Myra blurted, pouring out the most interesting and important details that came to mind. At first it looked as if Rack understood what it was, cognitive poison. He tried to plug his ears and back away, but it was already too late. He slowly removed his hands from his ears and listened, fascinated as if spellbound. Damn, that's creepy how fast it works. Cognitive poison is really extremely dangerous. He realized what I did, but was so taken by the information that he couldn't stop listening. It's a bit like an addiction, but far worse, a mental addiction. Myra thought as the pain in her ribs and arms made speaking difficult. Each word felt like a growing burden, a mountain to climb. Then, after only a few moments, Rack's eyes began to bleed and tears streamed down his cheeks. But he didn't seem to notice the blood, it poured from his nose as well. It kept flowing until he bled from all openings, mouth, nose, eyes, and ears. Damn, that was close. I thought I was going to die here. This just shows how powerless I am against people, or anything that's not a spirit. I'm almost just a normal human compared to other Beyonders. And I need to change that, Myra thought as her vision blurred and exhaustion took hold. A heartbeat later everything went black, and the invisible force Ares had been holding back faded. Myra would later be impressed at how easily she had used this untrained power. That power, later called spirit telekinesis, was only narrowly useful in this exact situation. What on earth was that? Ares wondered, confused, hovering weightless as if witnessing Myra's death in the air above one of Averan's many streets, hundreds of people preparing for the Silver Moon Festival below. When the strange invisible force eased, one thing filled Ares's mind as she flew through walls and buildings toward Myra. It wasn't just a sense of where the anchor object lay, it felt like she had been pushed in that direction. Returning now felt easy. As she passed through one wall after another, the sensation of flying and gliding through structures felt different than before, almost more real, as if stone and people were soap bubbles that couldn't pop. I have to get back to her. Whatever that was, she is my best chance to live again, Ares thought as she flew through the wet walls and saw the crowd restless and agitated by the gunfire. I must reach her before the riders arrive. Whatever she did must be tied to the mysticism, and she doesn't want to be exposed as a free Beyonder, Ares thought anxiously as she sped up, the last 100 meters blurring into a streak of landscape. A heartbeat later she arrived and found a scene that made no sense. Myra lying on the ground, Rack bleeding from every facial opening, mouth, eyes, nose, ears, but not the gore that was terrifying, it was Rack's expression. He looked like someone who had heard something so beautiful in his last seconds that he died in a mix of ecstasy and pain. What the hell happened here? How did she do this? Ares asked herself as she noticed something else that wasn't normal. There was no visible spiritual energy in the air to explain it. First, I should pick up my anchor item, only with it can I touch something, Ares muttered more to herself than to anyone. She bent to pick up the silver ring and then noticed Myra, one arm twisted unnaturally, clearly broken. Blood trickled from her head, and not in a small amount. As Ares focused on the two corpse puppets, the buzzing of insect wings could already be heard. Ares was completely alone. It was creepy, but the fastest, best option that came to her mind. She sank into Rack's lifeless body and slipped the ring on him. A heartbeat later, the process finished and the new body felt like an ill-fitting dress, tolerable but uncomfortable. Rack, what a slow, stupid body, Rack's voice said now, his features softened from their earlier hardness, as the two corpse puppets also stirred. But when Ares saw how hard it was to move one of the puppets, she let it be. Even with the marionette ring, the thinner, smaller guard wouldn't cooperate. Good thing I had something like this before. This ring is just like the medallion I once had, Ares thought as she made the marionette lift Myra and run. A moment later, Ares noticed the ring Myra had. Comparing it with the ring she had, she realized what it must be. A sigil ring, made to quickly and easily activate a sigil in combat. I hope this helps, Ares thought as she activated the ring on the corpse puppet. As expected, a small compartment opened and something glowed. Myra's wounds began to knit. The effect was a bit strong for a simple sigil but not so powerful as to be high tier. Strange, but helpful. The insect buzz grew louder. Ares estimated only a few seconds remained. I could try to make a distraction, Ares thought as she turned a corner onto the main street. Myra had at least stopped bleeding, as far as could be seen. I just hope the riders chalk this up to a simple shooting and not use mystical means to find us, Ares thought as she frisked the body she was using. There was nothing notable. A book, a couple of rings, some gold coins, and 3 sigils from the Dominion Path. Okay, Rat was at least an apprentice Beander of the Dominion Path. No wonder he could run so fast in that fat body, Ares thought, grateful she had wiped most of the blood from her face. Some civilians glanced at the strange pair as Ares carried Myra through the crowd as calmly as she could without running. Bzzzt went the buzzing wings of the insects as they raced overhead. Seconds stretched to minutes as Ares allowed herself to breathe, but when she started to check the body's memory of recent events, a voice cut through her thoughts like a hot knife. Don't do that, Ares. That's why I sent you away. You'll die if you do that, Myra said with effort, looking toward Ares through her eyelids. Even as Myra closed her eyes in exhaustion, her words echoed in Ares' mind and the danger became clear as glass, though why Myra didn't panic and immediately recognized Ares remained a question.
And that's it for today. This was part 8 of the story, Eureka, a guide to the mysticism. I hope you liked it, and if you liked it, leave a like and comment down below. If you now go on the left side of the screen, you can see the newest video I uploaded. On the right side of the screen is a link to the playlist where you can watch the entire story or listen to my story. I hope you had fun. Until next time, take care and goodbye.